Today, I want to talk about planing. That's the next step in our box build. A lot of old furniture, traditional style joinery, only planes outside of boxes and drawers. You'll find a lot of drawers in antique furniture where on the inside of the drawers you can see tool marks and pencil marks and things like that. So you can get away with minimal planing just by planing the top parts of the box, as long as the bottom's reasonably flat, and the outsides just to smooth them out and to reveal the joinery in a nicer looking way. So what we're going to do is we're going to disassemble this box, and we're going to plane the outsides and the top edges, and then we'll refit it and see how it sits. Okay, now up to this point, everything in this has been about being precise in how you measure and cut your joinery. Because once you do that, then as you can see, when your joinery is done and fit together, it's pretty good. It's pretty close. We'll only need the teeniest little bit of tune-ups. That'll save you a lot of time and effort in the build. So remember, take your time, do your measurements accurately, and then take your time again and cut accurately to your marks, and know and understand your marking system. We have here two planes, a bevel down smoothing plane from Veritas and a traditional Bailey type mechanism bevel down plane from Veritas. This uses the Norris adjuster instead of the Bailey style, but it's the same layout of the blade and the lever cap and all that stuff. Which one you choose for this kind of work makes no difference. It's all about technique. The bevel up planes or so-called low angle planes, they are just a little bit easier to do blade changes and blade sharpenings. Other than that, there's really no functional difference between them. The difference in angle between them is very little. This angle is 35 degrees for the bevel and 12 degrees for the base, so that's 42. This one is at 45. It's only 3 degrees. It's not enough to make a difference, really, in end grain or any other grain. What differentiates them is how they're physically set up. The bevel up plane is a lot easier to learn how to sharpen and how to change blades and how to set up. But once you know how to use this one with its extra complexity of the chip breaker and the lever cap, becomes much more approachable in setting up, because there are more components. You have to get those more components lined up properly and set properly in order for the plane to work. So that's the real difference between a bevel up plane and a bevel down plane. There are other minor differences, but they don't make a lot of difference when it comes right down to using the plane. So for our purposes, I'm going to swap between the two just so that you can see. I'm going to do one board with one, next board with the other. It won't make any difference to the chips or the shavings or anything. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I don't want to take a hugely thick shavings from these. I just want to finish these up so that I can paint the box. If I were going to shellac and polish the surface, I might approach it slightly differently, in that I would plane it, maybe taking off slightly thicker shavings at first in order to get down quickly to smooth surface, and then go to an extremely thin shaving, less than 1/1000th of an inch, and that would produce probably dust-like shavings, to polish the surface and to finish the surface super fine, so that when I laid the shellac on, it doesn't have to work against the surface itself. However, for paint, I want some kind of tooth on the surface so that it adheres. So I'm not going to take a shaving that is just dust-like. I'm going to take a little bit more than that, maybe 2, 3, 4 thousandths, whatever feels right in the context of the board. So I'm going to extend the blade barely at all and take a pass across. So I'll start at this side and I'll work across the board. That way I don't leave any lines. So my first pass, you can see I've got good shavings, but they're dust-like. So that's probably realistically less than a thousandths. So I'm going to run this in just the teeniest little bit, a quarter turn. Let's see where that gets us. Okay, that gets us on the high spots, some nice shavings that are, you can feel that they have some thickness. So that's where I'm going to go with this board. So it shouldn't take too many passes. Again, I'm starting on this side and moving to that side. As we get down, the shavings will get bigger. Not. There you go, that's a full thickness, full width shaving. You can see there's a slight line here, but when I go over it, I'm going to overlap my blade with that line just a hair. And you will see I take a shaving that goes up to the line, doesn't go past the line, and it leaves nothing, but that second line is over there. So now we'll just go across. Okay, so that board is done. That's good enough for paint. The side is now smooth and flat all along. I could go further and take out this pencil mark, or I could just angle this and take a shaving like that to try and clear off that. Or I could grab a card scraper and remove that later. So there it is. There's no tear out, nothing like that. There's the knot here with its furriness, but it's not torn out. There's this little adjunct area to the knot, which is like a micro knot or something. Other than that, it's perfectly ready for paint. Okay, so now let's move on to the other side, and we'll use the other plane. So I'm back it off until it doesn't take anything, and give it a quarter turn. That's barely taking dust again, see? So knock that in another quarter turn. The other thing I didn't mention about the other one is I've set the mouth here pretty fine in order to force a clean cut with the blade. If you leave the mouth wide open, then as you come up with the blade to the wood, it can lift the fibers and push them off the board further down. That's what causes tear out. But if you have that mouth pushing down on the fibers as it moves forward, then the fibers don't have the chance to pull out and rip along the length of the board. So I've closed down the mouth. It's probably, I don't know, what do you think? 1/8 of an inch? Less than 1/8 of an inch. Okay, that's still dust-like savings. Let's go one more quarter turn. That looks good. Full width shaving already, but not down this side. There we go. Yeah, full width shavings all the way across. Now this has some staining in it, so I'm going to go a little further on this and see if I can remove that staining, because it might come through the paint. Sorry about that, I smashed into you. This has a wider blade than my bevel up plane. So really it takes 2 1/16 of a pass. I don't know. Well, we'll go one more. See what we get. See that pass with the staining. It's taking the whole thing, and it's taking a bit of the stain, but that stain runs quite deep. Let's go one more. I'm not worried about the thickness of this board because once I have the joints assembled, I can clean up any stick out on the joint from unequal width pretty easily. It's almost gone. Let's go one more. So I don't have to plane the boards the same number of strokes and the same thickness. They just need to be in the ballpark because any real difference can be cleaned up. Okay, you'll notice I'm going across. That way I don't leave any lines. The edges of my blades are not chamfered. They're perfectly square, which makes it easy to sharpen. That leaves a perfectly finished surface. So I'm going to do that with the last 2 boards, the left and right sides, and then we'll come back and we'll look at planing the long grain.